WoW Killer is a production of amove.tv. Check out amove TV for many more podcasts, multiple about Blizzard games. And for more of Taliesin's WoW coverage, check out Taliesin and Evitel on YouTube and twitch.tv. Greetings and welcome back, everyone, to WoW Killer. I'm Garrett, here as always, with Taliesin, and we are here to hype the shit out of Shadowlands.
I'm Taliesin. Hello. Wow, that's good. We were just talking before the show started about how, I was swearing a bit much last episode, and I was like, I'm going to tone it down this episode. No swears from me, and you're just right in there.
I love that. We're like 23 episodes into the show, and we're still having that discussion about swearing. Taliesin, I have it's easy. It's easy. Although I don't know what I think you have a different rating system, but in the States, it's PG-13, man. That's what I try and keep myself to. It ramps up and ends at shit. Although technically you're allowed one F-bomb in a PG-13.
I'm just concerned that we'd lose our Disney sponsorship.
Oh shit!
I'm moving house. I've got a child to feed. I can't, I can't upset the mouse.
I didn't know that we had a Disney sponsorship.
Oh, wait. Did you say Disney songs are shit?
You didn't tell me this, man. Wait, have you been cashing all of the Disney bucks they've been sending you and not sharing them?
That's why I'm moving.
You're so much further away from Disney than I am. I could use those Disney bucks.
You've blown it now with that S-bomb, haven't you? That's the end of that. Now we just have to talk about WoW and do it the old-fashioned way.
It's so unfortunate. Also, I guess that confirms they're doing a WoW park or something if they're sponsoring the show. So
a Blizzard World, no less.
Hey, it's my favorite thing that they'll probably never ever actually make.
I always think the Anaheim offices are basically Blizzard World, right? You go in and there's statues off everywhere, and there's no real rides that you've seen are there, and they're not even people dressed up as imagine if you went into if you went into Blizzard World, it was a theme park, and there was someone in dressed up as Terran Gregory,
so are we going realistic? Are we going oversized?
He's got a director's clapperboard or whatever, and he's going around. He's like, ooh, and he can't speak obviously because he's in a suit. And you're like, oh my goodness, look, it's Terran Gregory. Oh, let's go and have our photo taken with Terran Gregory. And he's like, just waving and
you joke
stuff.
But in this world that we live in, it might not be unrealistic that we all start wearing giant oversized masks of our own faces so that people can recognize us and we can safely socialize.
Yeah. Oh wow, Blizzard World's gonna be brilliant.
We're all just gonna look like assassins from Umbrella Academy at the end of this. That's what's gonna happen.
I can't wait. What's the topic on our one topic, laser focused WoW podcast today, Garrett?
You might be this might go against that setup, Taliesin, but it's Shadowlands. It is just Shadowlands, which you might, listener at home, say, hey, wait a minute, I thought you were a single topic podcast. That seems like a pretty wide umbrella. But it's still a single topic. If there's a lot of topics underneath that topic, that's just on reality.
Specifically, this is our kind of little gift to ourselves this episode. Usually our present to ourselves is doing a mailbag episode because it's easy, but our gift to ourselves this week is our Shadowlands hype episode, because we just want an opportunity to get hyped about Shadowlands basically and talk about it, but maybe also some of our fears about it, but we'll get into that later. Because Garrett, I don't know if you noticed, but the PTR got updated last week with the pre-patch expansion event.
Taliesin,
World of Warcraft expansion Shadowlands.
I didn't notice because I'm so humble and aware of my privilege as a creator that the PTR meant nothing to me, because I have yet to see a zombie event, which means it's just a stripped down version of the beta I already have access to.
Ooh, wow.
I wanted to go test the event.
I also didn't. initially noticed because, of course, I was on the beta. But yeah, once it was pointed out to me that the PTR had been updated and that the pre-patch was on there, you couldn't hold me back. I was on there. I was like, let's check this out. And okay, so here's the reason I wanted to talk about like Shadowlands hype today is because this being on the PTR sets us on an inexorable path. We are now on tracks. We are on rails. We are in like the seat, lots of theme park kind of like stuff going on today, but we are in like the roller coaster, and it's doing that thing where it's clicking slowly up the tool bit.
A chain lift.
You're just and it's going to get to the top. It's going to be like, oh, Shadowlands is here, whoa, and like, you know, it's going to go down really fast, and we're all going to go whoa, and there's going to be one kid who isn't like screaming because the one kid is pulling like a cool face for the camera shot that happens. So when they buy their picture later on from the bit at the end of the roller coaster, everyone else is going but the cool kid's like. And they'll have that picture on their fridge, and like they'll be, oh look, this is me on the Shadowlands ride.
Or you stick out your tongue and throw the horns because you probably listened to Korn on the way up there in a 1996 Honda Accord with one more person that should have fit in it than should have, but you all think you're really awesome in your mom mobile.
What an incredibly specific analogy! I like it.
I have no idea where that would have came from. I just wanted to not say Limp Bizkit. I was never a Korn fan. And like, so what this means is we are on that track and we are getting up to the pinnacle, ready for the roller coaster ride that is Shadowlands. So you're basically saying there's like no turning back now. Like, we are on the chain lift.
No turning back.
We will inevitably be at the top of that drop, and it will drop, and that drop will be the release of Shadowlands. I guess the only hole I could poke in that is sometimes the chain lift does break down, Taliesin.
No, it won't. I mean, but you're still stuck in it, even if it does, Garrett.
That's a very good point.
The thing has been lowered down on you. Your arms and legs are safely inside the cart, and you're there now. If it breaks down, it breaks down. You're screwed.
So we're very specifically on an inverted roller coaster where you can't just step up out of the cart and take the stairs down the chain lift.
Yeah, well, no, because it's electrified, Garrett.
Oh, so it's a death trap.
Yeah.
What park are you going to? I didn't realize that the torture dungeon of Diablo has its own theme park.
Going to one of them British ones.
Oh,
one of them British ones.
Makes sense.
With like a name like Dosney World. Come to Southend Dosney World. It's great. We got a roller coaster.
I can smell the sausage and I can see the driver caps. Like you said it, and it's just.
But and that's the thing. Okay, because it is exciting. All joking aside, right? Every expansion for the last X amount of expansions, I believe from Mists of Pandaria onwards, has followed the exact same timeline. And that timeline is the PTR gets updated with the pre-patch event. Pre-patch event on the PTR for people to play with. 2 months to the day later, to the day for the last couple of expansions, the expansion has gone live. So pre-patch hits the PTR. 2 months to the day later, the expansion goes live. So if Shadowlands were to keep to that time frame, and there's no reason why it wouldn't. Actually, there's quite a few reasons why it wouldn't, and I'm not sure it will. But if it were to keep to that time frame, then we are looking at, well, it's been a week now, so we are looking at Shadowlands coming out in but a month and 7 weeks.
That would put it at the first week of October.
Yeah. Are you excited yet, Garrett? I can see your hair has gone white with fear.
Well, I'm doing my best. I'm trying to get my Sylvanas cosplay on. I'm trying to really get in the spirit of Shadowlands. I am properly excited, dude. To put my jokes aside, so this show and also being a regular on the instance have changed me. They've changed me, Taliesin, because I don't...
They've made you look a whole lot older, that's definitely for sure.
Oh, for sure, without a doubt.
But like in a nice way, in a sexy way. You know how like men get more attractive when they get older? You're definitely a Tyrallian, and you're not like someone who gets uglier as they get older.
I mean, I did shave my beard off post starting the show, and now I'm getting carted a lot more when I'm going places. But whatever the case. Not that I'm going places a lot, but I am going to liquor store. You better damn well bet that that's on my places I am hazarding a visit to. But... whatever the case is, I've been interfacing with alpha, with beta more. I typically stay the hell away from them. I think I've mentioned it multiple times, but like the last one I played a lot of was the Lich King beta, just because I was so excited for the expansion. And I do think it burnt me out on the Lich King content faster than I would have had I not played beta. So since then, I've basically kind of stayed away from them. I'll go in, I'll mess with like a target dummy, maybe play around with new customization features if that's a thing, but I don't go out and quest or anything. I have done a little bit of that now, so that I can experience it. Things I want to test. I really wanted to test Torghast, so I played quite a bit of that. And freaking pre-patch PTR is something I don't think I've ever actually attempted to go and experience up until this past week, because of the fact that I'm on so many damn WoW shows now. So, and so I've had a nice little sampler of Shadowlands, and I really like what I've seen so far. And yeah, I'm properly excited for Shadowlands. It has there's a hard to describe vibe I get, where it just feels like one of those good expansions.
Yes, I agree with you.
Something about like and I realize zones and questing, I basically believe they're good in every expansion. I had some strong words for Warlords of Draenor last time in that regard. I thought it was a little homogenized. All the zones kind of blended together for me. But overall, I think even when WoW is at its worst, questing, leveling, that whole experience, it's always good. They always find ways to push the envelope in zone design, in new races and cultures that we get to interact with. I love that stuff.
Yeah.
But it's really good in Shadow. Like, it's really freaking good. The zones are incredible. Save for maybe Bastion. I think Bastion's a little okay. But the other three are really impressed. Yeah, I think
I thought Bastion was like totally up your street, man. I thought that was totally your vibe.
It's growing on me. It feels a little like we always do I feel like every episode we have a music analogy. It feels like the song on the record where I'm like, I skip like the first 10 times to listen to a new album, and then like eventually I find out, oh damn, I really dig this track. There's some more subtle things happening here that I like that weren't as in your face as the hit single of Sexy Vampire People.
Sure, I get you. I hear you. The immediacy of the Vampire People, and Bastion is a grower. Absolutely.
Yes, Telly. Thank you. Thank you so much for the first dick joke of the day. Ding. I need to get a bumper for that.
Well, look, I'm glad you're excited for it, because I actually do think it's coming out in October now. I just see no reason why it won't follow the same timeline as other expansions. Gamescom is next week.
Yeah.
And how like, would it really surprise you if and we know that Blizzard are at Gamescom and have announcements, so would it really surprise you if someone came on and was like, let's say it's John Haidt, just because I always like to imagine John Haidt basically doing anything. John Haidt walks on stage and he's like, okay, so I hear you like World of Warcraft. And of course it's Gamescom, so about 3 people will cheer. And he'll go, oh great, so I hear you like the new expansion. Well, I've got good news for you. There's gonna be a new expansion, and it's gonna release October the 10th, and pre-patch will be in 2 weeks. And everyone will be like, nice one, John. Fucking nailed it.
I mean, it was uncanny, dude. I felt like I was there.
Have a massive joint, John. Well done.
I've never been to Gamescom, but I felt like I was there.
Yeah. And like be one person at the front, like, yes, I love Shadowlands, I love WoW. And everyone else is like, when's the Fortnite announcement?
Who is Epic trying to strong arm into upsetting an entire industry today?
Listen, I love John Haidt. John Haidt is my favorite person who works at Blizzard, because like, if I was John Haidt, I'd do exactly the same thing that John Haidt does, which is basically just be high all of the time. John Haidt hasn't got anything to prove to anyone. John Haidt probably doesn't have to work another day in his life. John Haidt just is high all of the time, and I love that, and I respect it, and I love him. He's a precious, precious thing, and he must be protected.
The opinions of the comments of Taliesin do not represent that of WoW Killer as a whole. Yeah. No, it wouldn't surprise me. Like, Gamescom's
You know
usually
what?
a really
I bet John
big.
Haidt never even wears shoes. I bet John Haidt goes around in his socks everywhere. Because I would, if I was John Haidt, I'd just go around in my socks everywhere. Oh! No socks for this man. No socks for this Florida man.
Nope. Sandals all the time, unless I'm driving. And even
But
then,
would it surprise you if someone got on stage in Gamescom and just said, "Hey, pre-patch is in. By the way, pre-patch in 2 weeks."
it wouldn't. It would. Gamescom's usually like. I feel like we have to remind ourselves of this every year, but Gamescom usually comes with substantial Blizzard announcements.
It came with the whole Legion announcement, didn't it?
Yes.
Like, the first we ever heard of Legion was at Gamescom.
Yeah. Gamescom is like I used to call it pre-BlizzCon. Like, it's the BlizzCon pre-patch. Like, the Blizzard usually brings some substantial announcements to Gamescom. So I'm still like surprised when I find out things like this are happening. Like, I just assume everything was canceled in like all forms of it. So I don't even know what form Gamescom is taking. I'm assuming it's all virtual.
Okay. So that would, I think so. You're right. But I mean, as people in the chat are pointing out, that would mean that pre-patch would go live like mid-September. And we know that Blizz are currently giving beta access as like competition prizes and things like that. And those prizes are going out on the 3rd of September, which would give players like less than 2 weeks in beta before the pre-patch went live. Now, of course, you can still, like, beta access is still good to have even during pre-patch, because, you know, you're playing stuff that you can't play in pre-patch. So that would still give you like 7 weeks to play pre-patch, to play beta, you know? So I wouldn't rule it out just for that reason. But it is a good point. It is a good point to bring up. Our channel are one of the ones involved in those beta giveaways, so we know the dates involved. But still, I mean, that, like, I wouldn't be surprised if pre-patch went live mid-September, which would mean, of course, and Blizzard have been kind of subtly reminding people about all the stuff that is going away in pre-patch. Like, for example, the Mythic Keystone 15 mount and the Longboy, the Brutosaur and stuff like that. And they have been doing that for about a month now. Just the odd blue post going up every now and then going, by the way, you might just want to think about maybe just getting these things. I don't know why, but
I don't know why we'd be suggesting this, but I love that you're saying like a subtle blue post. Everything you just mentioned got like a full-on blog post on the official site with like graphics and punctuation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, I count anything that isn't a John Haidt live stream as subtle these days.
Oh God. When in the episode is the Hazakostas impression coming? When is that happening?
The Ian Hazakostas impression.
It was not a request, by the way. That was not a request.
Dude, that boy is working too hard to go to Gamescom.
Too hard to
like,
go. Yeah.
It was all hands to the pump for like Ian Hazakostas. He's down there. His sleeves are rolled up. He's walking from like if anyone was actually allowed in the office right now, he'd be walking from desk to desk, being like, "Okay, so how's it going?" And people are like, "Oh, Ian, I just don't think I can get this bit finished." He's like, "Okay, move aside. I'm gonna do this." And like, you know, does some programming himself or whatever and sorts it out.
So nowadays it's just what, like the rando you hear the Skype like calling noise. It's just like, it's Ian's checking in again.
Yeah. He's like, guys, I thought we were going to have a PvP vendor in Shadowlands. Like, yeah, we put the PvP vendor in ages ago, Ian. And he's like, I can't find it. Where is it? I can't find it. Why is it so hard to find?
Wondrous.
Would you be happy with that, though? Would you be happy with that, Garrett? Would you be happy with pre-patch starting in mid-September? Would you go for that? Would that hype you, Garrett, to go back to our topic? Would that hype you?
I would like it as soon as possible. I would like the longest time with pre-patch as I can get.
Why? What's so great about pre-patch? What excites you about pre-patch?
Well, everything we get the level squish. We get the change in talents and abilities. We get new customization options. We get the new leveling experience. Like, there's so much that you can sit there and chew on that isn't specifically heading into the Shadowlands, right?
It's true.
So why not? Like, I I'm having trouble recalling. I don't have this information in front of me. Do you recall how long pre-patches usually last?
A month.
A month.
Pretty much to the day. Yeah, usually. And that because that's the thing. Pre-patch hits the PTR, and then a month later, pre-patch goes live, and then a month after that, the game goes live. With BFA, I think like the pre-patch went onto the PTR on the 14th of June, and then the pre-patch went live on the 17th of July, and then obviously the expansion went live on the 14th of August. So like 2 months to the day between those things happening. Quite a ride, quite a roller coaster ride. And of course, the BFA pre-patch was quite like narrative focused. There's a lot going on in that BFA pre-patch. People talk ill of it, but I thought it was wonderful. And probably more going on in that pre-patch than we're going to see in the Shadowlands pre-patch all in all. It seems there is like a narrative that kind of unfolds over the course of the pre-patch. And very, very slight spoilers here. I'm not going to give away any story or anything like that. But, we know that there are 2 cinematics during the events of the pre-patch as well. One of them is catching us up with stuff that has happened just before the pre-patch, which I think will be the announcement cinematic. There's some quite interesting events that we get talked to about. And you get one of those like dialogue boxes, which is like, show me what happened. And then like a cinematic plays. So I'm pretty certain that's going to be at Gamescom. I'm pretty certain like John Haidt will be like, and hey, we got a cinematic to show you. I heard you like cinematics. Yeah, everyone loves the cinema. And like show that and that'll be that cinematic, which we then see when the pre-patch starts. And that's obviously going to be baller, and I can't wait for that. And then there's another one when we kill a world boss. As well, which sounds incredibly interesting, which is very important too. So, like, there's that going on, but narrative-wise, the quests that take you to Ice Crown and get you ready to go into Shadowlands when the actual expansion launches, nothing like as deep or involved as the BFA stuff. But then you do have the zombie plague thing going on at the same time, which apparently is very heavily based on the Wrath of the Lich King pre-patch, which I obviously wasn't there for, but you were.
I have that armor set you want so badly.
No way! You've got the blue Judgment armor set.
It's purple, isn't
it?
The
battle gear of undead slaying.
Yes, it's bluish. Yeah, you're right. It is bluish. I do.
It's kind of bluey grey.
I do. Yes.
For ice, because of ice, Garrett. Because ice. Because Lich.
Because ice. Yes, indeed. Yeah. It was funny watching your content, being reminded that people didn't like it at the time, and also being reminded that I didn't read the freaking forum, so I wasn't aware how mad people were, because I loved it. I loved every minute of it.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I've only ever been told how like wonderful the Wrath pre-patch was, and like people usually actually kind of use it as an example of how rubbish WoW is now, because they're like, don't you remember Wrath? Don't you remember the Wrath pre-patch? Those were the days when the zombie plague swept through the capital cities and no one could do anything because everyone was dead because they'd all been eaten by zombies and they were zombies now. And that's just the way it was. Those were the days. You don't get it like that anymore. Don't get WoW like that anymore. That's why WoW is trash. And I was like, cool, sounds awesome. And I played it on the pre-patch, which is a very similar thing, every now and then, like a zombie invasion little thing happens. And in Stormwind or Orgrimmar, you get bit by a zombie, you get turned into a zombie, and you get to go around basically trolling and griefing other players and like eating them, and they get et, and you eat them and they turn into zombies, and then you et everyone else, and then it all goes. And if you're very clever, before the virus takes hold and you turn into a zombie, you jump in a little portal to Dalaran or any other place where there are going to be people who won't expect it. Like when I was in the pre-patch at first, my character that I copied onto the PTR was in Borealis, because that's where all my characters are, and that place was awash with zombies going crazy. It was nuts. Couldn't do anything. It was brilliant. I loved it, and I thought, wow, this is really fun. And, I'm going to write about it for the weekly reset, obviously. And I thought it'd be funny to have, you know, because there was already a bit of a shit show on the forums about it then. And I thought it'd be nice to contrast the way that everyone loved it back in Wrath of the Lich King with the way that everyone hates it, or a lot of people kind of hated it in the PTR. So I went onto the Wayback Machine, Garrett, and I went back to the Blizzard forums from the Wayback Machine, and I found the appropriate date. And unfortunately, they hadn't copied any of the actual forum posts themselves, but the actual forum pages were there with post titles, with thread titles, and the amount of replies and things like that. So I was able to scroll through and just going by thread title. And this was on the weekly reset, but I'm gonna read to you some of the thread titles that I was able to find. Wait a minute. Oh, I'm not sure I can. I think I deleted it. I deleted it. I deleted all the files because it was too toxic. But they were all like, I hate the zombie event. Get rid of this zombie event. This is the worst thing ever. I'm canceling my account because of the zombie event. This zombie event's horrible. Get rid of it. And there's about 20 posts like that. And then there's one post which was, I like the event. And it had 2 replies.
Wonderful. I'm so glad. I think I may have accidentally made a forum post and not realized it back then.
Yeah. And likewise, a lot of the same. I mean, you know, it's not hard to see why people would be upset about it. For a little bit of time, you know, griefing is basically encouraged in World of Warcraft in the capital cities, where people go for their auction housing and for their RP and things like that. And then suddenly, idiots like me are running around as zombies, biting and etting and doing all sorts of stuff and having a gay old time, and stopping them doing what they want to do. Just because
let's be honest, Taliesin, like, how much gold are you really making at the auction house right before expansion? Could there be a worse time to try and turn a profit?
You're getting none if I'm a zombie, mate. You're turning no profit at the auction house if I've been bit by a zombie, because you get an et, son. You get an et. And it's brilliant. It's good fun. Now, like, I don't know how it worked in Wrath of the Lich King, but in the PTR currently, it's quite easy to not actually see any zombies at all, because it's a timed event and it only happens a couple of times a day, it would seem.
Yeah,
now, the first time I logged in, it was in full flow, but then the last couple of times I've logged in, I haven't seen a single zombie.
Yeah, I logged in 3 times yesterday trying to see it, and I logged in a couple times the day before and never saw it. Not once. I was just like, okay, I guess I'll just go back to beta, because the only thing I can do here is test. I think builds.
when the PTR goes live, I don't think it's ever going to be a time when there is no zombies, because I think people will keep it going in between, like the timers. You know, because if there's enough people doing it, you can perpetuate it. You know, and you can have basic never-ending zombies if enough people are doing it. And Garrett, if the events of 2020 have taught me anything, it's that people are always willing to keep a plague going long after it should have finished. That's what I've learned. So I think that when you log into the PTR, it won't matter when you log in. I think there's always going to be a bit of zombie action going down.
I mean, it is the World of Warcraft, and we, the world, are quite good at keeping things going. You are right.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter because, like, anyway, it's not comparable to Wrath of the Lich King anyway, because obviously in Wrath of the Lich King there was no flying. And there was no kind of teleporting into battlegrounds and stuff like that. So, you know, you had to talk to NPCs in the capitals to make these things happen. And so it was much harder to actually get away from the zombie plague. These days, we've got flying, we've got like insta-queue, you know, we've got Longboy for doing auction house stuff as well. Like,
yeah, you just fly yourself up to the highest.
I can't imagine.
Fly yourself up to the highest peak of the most remote area.
Yeah.
And sit there with your longboy doing your auctions. Have fun.
Yeah, totally. Now, would you introduce, just for lols, a tailoring item, which was a face mask, which gave you slight resistance to the zombie plague?
I 100% would. Nah, man. I haven't taken my face mask off in Animal Crossing since I bought it. Like, bring it. Absolutely bring it. I am 100% here for that.
Yeah. Is there an auction house in Exodar? People are talking about it in the chat. If there's an auction house in Exodar,
yes,
no problems. There ain't going to be no one in the Exodar.
There is. Just remember, though, you can't fly. So if there is an outbreak, good luck getting away. Also, you have to stare at the Exodar while you're there, which is a punishment in its own right.
When that PTR goes live, Garrett, zombie party down the Exodar, me and you. We'll get anyone that dares venture into the Exodar, they get an et. They get an net.
Who's got a spare Euro account to pass to me?
Me, I have. Let's do it.
Let's do it. I'll be
like
there.
3 Euro accounts. Hop on.
I'll be there as a nude level 1 gnome. It'll
be splendid. Oh, I can't wait to eat all the people in the Exodar.
It's gonna be so
fun. No, and I think it's gonna be great. I think it's gonna be really good fun. Like, it'll be fun because of how naturally fun it is anyway.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I'm looking to be fun by how much it's gonna upset people.
Yes, I enjoyed the zombie event. I look forward to its return. I really I don't have a lot to add. I share a lot of your thoughts because I'm with you. I think the questing looks not as interesting as everything that happened before BFA. Which is interesting for me to think back on, because I was like so furious with like the Sylvanas reveal that it wasn't a reveal, that they played coy with the most obvious BS ever, and I was like so annoyed with it. But I think back to the pre-patch event and like just how much meat there was to those quests for the BFA pre-patch for the War of Thorns, and I'm like, man, that was a good pre-patch event. Like whether I like,
and it felt like an event. Yeah, it felt like an important world-changing event was happening, and you were playing your part in it.
Yeah, and it did. It did freaking happen. The
world-changing event was happening. Okay, something that BFA then didn't have. So you went into the pre-patch and you were like, I know that I am playing the story that is going to end with this big tree burning, and that was super exciting because it was very Brechtian. You know how the story ends, and you're seeing how it happens. And BFA had the exact opposite. You're like, I have no idea who even the baddie of this expansion is, but I'm doing my quests.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's like controlled spoilers. It's like they gave us, they're like, well, this is gonna happen, and
yeah,
I mean, in a certain way, every expansion's like that because we always see the cinematic like long before pre-patch hits. So if like nothing else, you could say, well, we know that Sylvanas is gonna break the helm of domination, and then the zombies are gonna go at people, but War of Thorns was a lot more specific. Like it was very much like, hey, you know, I don't want to spoil anything, but Teldrassil's gonna burn. And knowing that made us want to go out and experience it. And and
that was such like a hype build up to the pre-patch and the expansion in general. Like it was so great to have that thing kind of hanging over the expansion. And be like, this is going to happen before the expansion even starts, dudes. There's going to be war. There's going to be like the War of Thorns. Don't forget that the attack on Lordaeron was part of the pre-patch as well, before it was actually then moved into the actual game proper.
You're right.
And that was super exciting. Like, don't forget, you know, like Old Soldier came out just before the Siege of Lordaeron.
That was that was a very
to that.
That was
like
a huge surprise.
Played the hype for BFA like magnificently. Like whoever was in charge of that rollout and that kind of drip feed of just awesomeness in the build up to BFA, like give them a medal because they did it beautifully. And it was amazing. It was so good. And the Shadowlands pre-patch isn't certainly like, obviously we haven't seen the cinematics or what have you, but I think I know what happens in them because it's kind of explained. Doesn't seem to have that kind of grandeur and that kind of melodrama and that sort of almost importance, really, which is weird because you go to Icecrown, there's a huge hole in the sky. You know, I feel like it should be a bigger deal than it is. And like the Legion invasions were really good like that. There was a real sense that the Legion are coming and they're kind of like they're taking over places, and you got to go and you got to kill a big boss. And oh heck. And another thing you mentioned, the questing. So far, there only seems to be 2 weeks worth of questing on there, and they're both quite short. It has to be said. And the idea is that you do a lot of dailies and stuff like that to kind of help the effort or whatever. And at the end of the second lot, there's no hint that there's going to be more. You know, you talk to your leaders, and they're like, "Well, I guess we're just going to wait for Bolvar to call us now, and we'll go to the Shadowlands." It's pretty much exactly what they say. And you're like, aha. So it's also possible that maybe we're just looking at a 2-week pre-patch. And maybe in that case, you know, it would hit in like the very last days of September or first days of October. And then last for 2 weeks, and we'd still get a kind of early to mid-October expansion. But that's also possible, I think.
Because Wrath of the Lich King nipped the zombie event early. Like they cut it short. But the way you describe the zombie event, as previously stated, I haven't experienced it myself on PTR. It sounds very much like like the Wrath of the Lich King zombie event. Like it can
And
spread, right?
It is whatever the players make of it, you know?
Yeah. So
it could peter out and disappear if people didn't do anything.
Right. So in a way, unless like, because you can still spread it to other players yourself as a zombie, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So
like the whole point.
if that hasn't changed, the concern is still there that this will be disrupting to the point of mass complaints. So
it seems
there might be something to your thought that it would be shorter. Maybe it's going to be shorter by design.
It's possible. I mean, that's my gut feeling from the amount of questing that's in there at the moment. Because there's not much, and there's certainly no kind of like, you know, no build up to any big reveals or anything like that. It's a much smaller pre-patch than Legion or BFA currently, which is interesting for a number of reasons. But I mean, it's a whole expansion compared to the WoD pre-patch. So I mean, it's relative. It's relative. And plus you get to go and hang out in Icecrown and have fun there and do dailies and kill world bosses and stuff, which is super fun. And like, you can get I think the idea is you can like gear up your alts and things like that, because your rewards for doing these dailies is you can go to a quartermaster and you can use a currency that you get to buy armor and gear and weapons. And it's item level 100, which is the equivalent of 450 in the game now. 450 is my 450 character who had item level of 450 had item level of 100 when copied over to the PTR. So it's like if your alts are under 450 now, it's gonna be good to get them up, getting ready for Shadowlands. I don't think the pre-patch is gonna be very good for leveling alts in the way that the Legion pre-patch was. You could famously like level alts super quickly through those Legion invasions. It doesn't look like that's going to be the case in the Shadowlands pre-patch, simply because they've got the new leveling experience, which they want you to go and do instead. They don't want to give you like a fast track into like just do these invasions and you'll level up all your alts. They want you to go to Exile's Reach and they want you to try the new thing. So yeah, I've enjoyed the pre-patch on the PTR, but it's not what I'm hyped for. I'm hyped for Shadowlands actually launching, and I'm hyped for getting in there because it feels. I'm someone that's played a lot of the alpha and the beta, and here's the thing: I don't usually, because I didn't play much of the Legion stuff because I didn't want to, because the channel wasn't very big, so I had no obligation to, and I'd rather never play it, to be honest. And I managed to avoid playing much of the BFA one. I went in there to get footage and to just check out things that I was talking about in videos and things like that, but I didn't like play test it. I was very glad that I had it, but I didn't really play test it. With Shadowlands, what I found is that I go in there and I play some stuff in the same way that I do for BFA, and like maybe I'll do some on stream and what have you. And then I'll be like, later on, I'll go and have my dinner and I'll like have a little beer or whatever, and I'll think to myself, oh, I really want to go and play the Shadowlands beta because it's just really fun. And I go back and I just level some new characters through it or something like that. And like, I've leveled through Shadowlands on like 4 different characters now, and it's awesome. I've enjoyed it every single time. And it's what you were saying earlier. It does seem to have like a kind of a special sauce to it, as Scott Johnson would say. Like it's got a bit of special sauce on it that Legion had, that it feels like an event expansion. When Legion started and it felt like an event, and the BFA pre-patch felt like a huge event. And then BFA kind of like, much as I enjoyed the questing and I enjoyed the storylines of the questing, I was like, okay, so what's the thing that's happening? Like I'm helping Jaina and I'm helping Rastakhan, but what's the thing that's happening? There's a war happening, fine, but there's always a war happening. Legion had like a much more focused energy than that, and Shadowlands has that as well. The stakes don't feel as high as in Legion. Like Legion felt like a battle for survival like the whole time, and it felt great, and I loved it. And the stakes aren't as high for Shadowlands, but it does have the same feeling of an event as you level through it. And I think the linear storyline really helps that. The fact that you have to start in Bastion and you play through the story and then you go to Maldraxxus, etc., etc. And that's the only way you can play through the story. You don't get to choose your leveling zones in that sense. And I think that probably really helps having a kind of a linear narrative. But yeah, it just feels like I know what I'm doing. I know who the characters are. I know what my intention is and my aim. I know who the baddie is, I think, and like how that's going to kind of play out to some degree.
You add, I think, at the end of that.
Yeah, exactly. But it doesn't matter if he doesn't turn out to be the baddie, because the fact is, I think he is. Okay, so like I have a focus.
There is a nemesis. There's a clear figure.
Like, if they want to be dickheads about it, and if they want to like make him out like a good guy at the end, whatever. The fact is, I've had an expansion where I had an intention. I thought I was going to take out this guy, and that helps. That really helps. We've seen how unsatisfying it can be in WoD when they pull a shifty on you and go, oh, you thought you were going to fight Grom because he's the one, he's in fairness, he is the one kind of genociding people, and you thought, but you didn't expect him to get captured by the Legion, did you?
Get out your bingo cards, everybody. I hope you have your WoW Killer bingo cards. We've gotten to Taliesin Eris's grievances about Grom in Warlords of Draenor.
So I think we will fight the jailer, and I think his intentions are going to be kind of understandable, but you know, at the end of the day, his like motives are just so anti our motives, and like, yeah, okay, jailer, I can see where you're coming from, and you did get a really rough deal, but you do still want to kill us and destroy our world, so I'm afraid we are going to have to take you out. I think it's going to be that kind of thing. I think we will, probably not as a final boss, but I think we will take out the jailer for sure.
As someone who could not be more well documented being grumbly about story beats regarding Sylvanas, I'm still very, very curious to see what the hell they do with her.
Me too. And like, it's good that mystery exists in Shadowlands, and that is one that is already there. So I feel like having that mystery as a kind of a B plot almost really allows them to, and it's a mystery which is already set up. And it's a mystery which everyone is expecting to play out in this expansion. And that kind of gives them the freedom to then also have a flat out big bad.
Yeah.
There from the in the jailer. And that is really satisfying. And it's really fun hearing like all the leaders of the other covenants kind of talk about the banished one, as they call the jailer, and talk about him in those terms. And yeah, it's just like super exciting. And there is quite clearly a much grander mystery going on in Shadowlands as well, which I won't talk about. But you know how you started Legion, and the hints were there about the Void and like Nazoth, and even beyond that, Zandalar and Kultiris. Like right from day one, those kind of hints were there. And then you started BFA, and the hints about, you know, the Drust and death magic and the afterlife and the Shadowlands, those were there from day one in BFA. And in Shadowlands, there's a very similar thing happening. You know, obviously the whole Shadowlands thing is happening, but there is very clearly something else going on as well, which makes kind of predicting where it's going to go not all that hard.
That kind of stuff is super fun.
I love it.
As just a fan, like it doesn't matter. I used to try and predict this crap before I ever did a WoW show. Like just talking with my friends, like, oh, where do you think it's going to go next?
Yeah.
So I eat that stuff up as well, because like
it's done really well in Shadowlands, and I don't know, something about having the linear questing and
well, that's something I've commented on in the past. You know, not necessarily on this show, but on other shows. Like I think there's an argument for non-linear. I don't necessarily think it's like carved in stone a bad thing, but I definitely miss linear leveling. I mean, part of it for me is more scaling. Like, I really missed the days of like accidentally going somewhere I shouldn't and just having my ass absolutely handed to me on a platter. But also from a storytelling aspect, as you've brought up, like that is important. Like, if you have non-linear leveling, that is going to affect the way you write the story. Like full stop. There's no way around that. And so, you know,
and like, even with the non-linear leveling in Legion and BFA, they usually kind of gave you some pretty heavy hints as to their preferred route. You know, it was pretty obvious, like in BFA, that it's pretty obvious in Legion that I was to go to Azuna first. You know, that was pretty obvious. It was like the one that was nearest. It was just obvious I was supposed to go there, so I did.
Just even Shit Wizard's monologue on the way down to Azuna felt like, welcome to the expansion. Look at the Look at
Absolutely.
the demons landing. And
likewise in BFA, it was obvious that I was supposed to start in Borealis or like the main Zandalar bit if I was in Zandalar, and the route through wasn't tough to spot. Like it did kind of set it up quite obviously, even though you had the choice to go to the places. So like, I mean, but yeah.
But it meant they had to pull punches, right? There couldn't be strict events that rolled into an event in the next zone, the way kind of traditional linear questing did take place. So
absolutely. And it's great. And so I was trying to think, like, because all the zones are so. This is something that feels really good about Shadowlands as well. And I don't know if it will feel good for the whole expansion, but it definitely feels really good now. Is just how unique all of the zones are. Like, every zone, for obvious reasons, is like super high concept. Like incredibly high concept, and all very much on one theme. You know, there are like different parts of the zones, but essentially, like you're never gonna forget which zone you're in.
So I was really worried at first. Like the concept of like the pitch for Shadowlands zones hit me with hard Cataclysm vibes. Like, oh, I'm just going to be portal hopping forever. Yeah. And while that is true, there's just the way they've packaged it. You know, even though, I don't know, I'm sure it'll even look better when we actually hit live, but like on alpha or beta, walking through like a portal to actually go to one of the zones, as opposed to like early alpha stages where you had to just load into zone by zone. Like, it's just, they've done a good job. You're not just hit with a loading screen. You actually pass through a portal. There's a graphic. I want to play the Doctor Who music every single time it happens. But it helps. It's a silly little touch. I think when you think of it, when you think of it in a vacuum, but
you're actually portaling. You're taking a flight path, and it's continuous, and it doesn't cut, and there's no loading screen.
Right, but in terms of theme and stitching it all together and making it feel cohesive, it does what it needs to do. It does what Cataclysm really lacked. On top of the fact that Cataclysm zones did exist, well, some of them in reachable locations around the continental Azeroth. But which we have free shipping only to lower continental Azeroth, by the way. Get your DHC shirt soon. So that was kind of weird too. So like it at no point, I don't know, like I see the boundaries of the game world less. I see the seams less in Shadowlands, like way less than I did in something like Cataclysm, and that to me is worth something. It is something that excites me, makes me happy, and keeps me in it. It keeps me in the theme of the expansion. It keeps me in the fantasy, as opposed to, all right, well, let's just port back to Stormwind, and then we'll port over to friggin' Uldum, and then we'll come back. Oh, I need to go over to Hyjal real quick. By the way, I could fly at the beginning of all of this. So, yeah, I'm really impressed with it. Because I was super worried at first, and also like on top of that, something about Maldraxxus, I was just like, oh, I know exactly what this is gonna be. And like, listen, I love me some Ziggurats. Like, F me up, fam, on Ziggurats. I'm all for it. But there was just something about it, again, on paper, where I was like, I know exactly what this is gonna look like, and it's gonna be really one note through the whole thing. And I get there, I'm like, all right, I've seen some Ziggurats, but never like this. Like, this is just to a whole new level of just like metal album cover 80s insanity. Like, it's great. So I've just been super pleased with the zone design.
And it's fun, and the order that you go through the zones is nicely done as well. So like every zone you go to is kind of like as different from the last zone as you could possibly be. So every new step you take in the journey, it feels like, oh, wow, okay, yeah, I'm somewhere like totally new here. And there hasn't been that kind of variety in zones. I was going to say since Cataclysm, but honestly, I think probably since Burning Crusade. Like, there hasn't been that kind of like, this is this zone where this thing is, and everything is like this, and it's so high concept, because it's like it's a completely new plane of existence, which means they can really just push the bits that are cool about that thing, because there's no light and shade in these zones. There's no even day-night cycle. There's quite literally no night and shade. So they're all of like the same lighting throughout the day. That never changes, and I think I will miss that. But and so the skybox can be like uber kind of out there and kind of incredibly sort of atmospheric, and only Ardenweald really has like that WoW zone thing of like, and here's the nice part of the zone, and here's like the dangerous part of the zone, and here's the bit where the ruins are, and here's the bit where there's loads of life and stuff like that. Ardenweald kind of has that, but the other zones are just like, this is Maldraxxus. This is Ardenweald. This is Bastion. This is Venthyr. Everything is vampire here. It is unrelenting vampire. Oh, but I guess Venthyr's got like the mirror bit with the suns and stuff. But yeah,
well, and Bastion has a bit where another zone is kind of encroaching on their territory.
Yeah, I know. But the thing about that is, it's just the other zone, right? So
yeah,
it's like
it's still cool, and I guess the pull it back just a hair, is that was something I was hoping for, and I still think would have been cool, is if the zones did touch. I think it would have been cool to have areas where every zone was crashing and fissuring into each other.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
But whatever the case is, I think what they did go with, they have executed exceptionally well.
Yeah. Now there are downsides to the approach because the zones do feel very compact. Or certainly in comparison to BFA zones, because BFA, they had 3 zones as a continent, and they felt vast. Particularly Borealis with that amazing kind of like huge, like port and like sea in the middle of it. It was like mind blowing, and you had this incredible sense of space and of everything being connected, and it being a living, breathing place, and towns and kind of settlements were really intelligently and intuitively sort of placed around the terrain and the map, and it felt real and wonderful. And Shadowlands has none of that, because the zones don't touch. They are literally islands, all of them, with nothing else in the distance even.
It's very theme park, which I always think World of Warcraft has been. BFA, I think, being the exception for all the reasons you just listed, because that was another thing where zone design exceeded my expectations, because I was like, oh, we're only getting 3 zones per faction, in quotations, because war campaign takes you to the opposing faction's island or whatever, and I was just like, this might feel a little small. No, they did feel like the biggest zones ever.
Yeah.
Maybe, I guess, the exception being like Argus, which was zone special achievement, I think, in making a zone feel kind of vast and unrelenting. But
yeah, you might hear my baby crying in the next room. Sorry.
It happens. It happens.
Not a fan of Argus, so
just like that's baby for I really wanted to fly.
Yeah, exactly. I worked hard for that mount. I worked hard for my Pathfinder. Hey, I pay my sub. I'm entitled. But no, and like, so, and the thing is, that means the Shadowlands zones would feel smaller, even if they were the same size. As it happens, I don't think they are the same size. I think they're actually smaller than the BFA zones. I think that has been backed up in interviews with devs as well. I think they are a little bit smaller. There's certainly more compact feeling because of the, not being connected to anything else and them being complete islands. I think that's okay. Another thing I would say is that the leveling is also very short. One of the reasons I've leveled so many characters through Shadowlands is because it's very quick. It's very quick to do. Now, what's your item level on your main in-game right now, Garrett?
Oh, dude, I don't remember. I haven't been on my main in forever. You know what I did last week? I actually logged into Classic for the first time in forever.
Wow.
I hit level 54.
You hate Classic.
I hit level 54, Taliesin.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. You want to know what's going on in Azshara in vanilla World of Warcraft?
Probably safe to assume that your item level on main is like between, like somewhere in the 470s, I guess, probably somewhere like that.
Probably. I didn't regularly raid at the end there.
Yeah.
But
okay.
Yeah, probably.
I think even just from your weekly chests and stuff, you're gonna end up with that. And like that means you won't be actually equipping any gear that you loot in Shadowlands until the final zone.
It's interesting. I know that because they haven't adjusted it, have they? I don't keep up with the minute changes to beta, but you can still max out long before you finish doing just the main quest lines.
Yeah, I mean, I had there's a great system. One of the brilliant changes about Shadowlands, which I love. Single best change in the entire game is the new map pin system, where you can pin the map and then you can send that map pin over chat to someone else, and they get the pin on their map. Oh my god, it's so good. But the other thing I like is the new questing system, where a main story quest will have a different question mark like marker than like a side quest or something. So a main story quest will have a little shield around it to show you that it's a main story quest, and you need to complete that to like progress the story. And then if you want to do the side quest, you can, but you know which is which. And so I went through and I had war mode on, because I always have war mode on, because, you know, I'm not a scrub. So that does give me like a bit of extra XP. But I went through only doing main story quests. So not doing a single side quest. And when do you ever do that? Like, you never did that in Legion or BFA, mainly because you didn't know which ones were main quests and which ones were side quests. You just did basically every quest.
I did what everyone did. I would load up on every single quest that I could, and then complete them in chunks of areas that were where the quests were grouped together.
I was going to quest hubs where, you know, many different quests were on offer, and I was only doing the ones that had shields around them. So I was leaving, you know, reams of side quests in my wake uncompleted, which felt kind of weird, but I purposely just wanted to do the main story quests to see what happened.
Which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. Like, I always, you know, before they made the change, because of the fact that I would level in the way that I did and grab all of the quests that I could, I would always I would always max out way before I was at the end of whatever the quote unquote final zone was. You know, in BFA, the very first time through, it was Vol'dun for me.
Sure.
I remember leveling way before I was done with Vol'dun, just being like, oh, I'm max level now, time to go grind dungeons. And I just like, poof, I think I still haven't finished Vol'dun quests.
Oh, man.
So, like, to me, that's just wow. But it is also still surprising to know that I can with knowledge skip quests on purpose, because I know they're not the main quests, and still ding significantly before I have finished the main quest.
Because I in a way that you haven't been able to do before, because it hasn't been clear, I did the absolute bare minimum of questing possible. I did one side quest in Bastion because it looked cool, and I don't regret it. And that was it. Otherwise, it's all main story quests. One of them I didn't even hand in, and I dinged 60. I want to say like a quarter to a third of the way through the final zone. But then, of course, you have to complete the storyline, because otherwise you can't progress the story. So I was max, and that's not bad, actually, being max level and just completing the storyline. And the idea is you will come back and you will do all the quests, because you're going to need the rep. So, like, for each zone. So you are going to go back and do those side quests, but you have the freedom to go back and do the zone that you like best first. And like, you can kind of prioritize. So like, we know that some conduits are going to be tied to faction rep. So, you know, like, you can go, okay, well, the conduit that I want, I get from being honored, and honored is the highest you need for any of them, but I get it from being honored with Ardenweald. So even though I'm in the Maldraxxus Covenant permanently, I'm going to go to Ardenweald, and I'm going to focus on world quests there, because I want that rep so I can get that conduit. And also, rep unlocks your Covenant campaign, and you get renown from your Covenant campaign. Like the Covenant campaign, like the War campaign in BFA, is rep gated. So the sooner you can get all the rep from your Covenant, the more chapters you can get in your Covenant campaign. And it looks like you're going to get a bit of renown for each chapter that you do. So it's a good way of getting your renown up, because the only other way is your 2 weekly quests. And that looks like it's going to be some kind of a catch-up mechanic as well. So if you leave your Covenant, your progress on that Covenant gets saved for if you come back. But obviously the Covenant that you're joining, you don't have any progress on at all. So it's good to kind of keep your rep up with the other Covenants anyway, just in case you might want to change in the future. Because if you change to Ardenweald and you are revered or exalted with Ardenweald, obviously that means you can then do all of the Covenant campaign straight away and get all of that renown straight away. And that's how you kind of instantly jump up in your levels for Ardenweald when you've just joined them, sort of thing. Probably not eloquating that very well, but it's kind of like a catch-up mechanic in its own way. So it's good to, like, with one eye on maybe changing Covenants. I know everyone's like, no, I'm going to stick to my Covenant all the way through, but you're going to want that rep. So you're going to go back and you're going to complete those quests. But the leveling process itself is very short. Like it's nowhere near as long as the leveling process in BFA or Legion, I would say.
Yeah, which I don't necessarily think is a bad thing because the Covenant system seems deep. You know, whether so, and it doesn't really kick off until you max, right? So
yeah,
that's another thing where I'm like, I don't think it's a bad thing. Like I don't know. WoW has always been such an end game MMO. Like that's like, oh, why would I say something so bold? But so I don't. I don't think I would ever look at leveling not taking very long as a negative. It's fine
really
to me.
Enjoy. Now, I kind of feel sorry.
Oh, I was gonna just move us into a stay in the same vague subject, but move us into a different point, which is I'm curious how you are choosing your covenant. Are you going joyless? Are you gonna go the joyless, like, quote unquote correct way, which is like wait for other people to min-max for you and figure out what is actually best for your character and spec? Or are you going to go with what you think your character would join, or just what you think seems the coolest? So
here's another reason I'm hyped for Shadowlands, okay? And this is something that Alpha and Beta has hyped me for, because that's kind of the thinking I had before I started playing on the Alpha and Beta, and it's still the number one worry that you hear from people who aren't like top level players have their own concerns about covenants, and that's fair enough. But for everyone else, there's just the basic worry that, you know, am I going to be able to choose the covenant that I want to be in, or am I going to have to choose a covenant that has like the best covenant ability for my class or something like that? Like, is my choice going to be made for me? And that's been everyone's number one worry since Shadowlands was like announced at BlizzCon, right? Like that's what everyone's been talking about. And that's what I thought too. I was like, oh, well, you know, I think I want to be in Venthyr, but what if the best ability is for someone else? You know, what I do, that's going to really suck. That is the number one worry with Shadowlands. Now I have a completely different number one worry, which is just as relevant. But one of the great things about playing on the beta, and the beta, I should say, and the alpha has been that I no longer have that worry. And I still don't know what covenant I'm going to be in, but I don't actually care, and I'm actually really looking forward to making a choice. And the reason for that is because I've gone in there and I've actually realized that leveling through, I really like all the covenants to an extent that, you know, after playing through the zones and seeing their story and meeting the characters there and seeing just how beautiful each zone is, like even Bastion, which I meme about, because it's like, you know, Boy Scout Smurf Lords, isn't it? And like a bit goody two shoes and stuff like that. It is stunning and it's beautiful and there's some really cool characters. And, you know, I would be happy. I know that were I to choose any one of them, I would really enjoy it. Because I'm also like, I've played enough of the Covenant campaigns to see that they've all got good Covenant campaigns and that I would get a lot out of either one. I have the advantage of knowing that I will also play in every Covenant because I've got so many characters and I will play. And same with I knew I was going to play through Alliance and Horde in BFA. I know that I will play through every Covenant campaign in Shadowlands. I know that's not something that everyone has, but I as far as my main is concerned, I honestly don't mind which Covenant I end up in. So I'm in a situation where I am literally choosing a Covenant depending on the Covenant abilities, but also the soul binds, which are actually much more important. And also like some kind of story as well. And like for me, that's a really fun way to choose. And that's actually really exciting to me is to kind of think to myself, yeah, I'm actually going to be okay in any Covenant and I'm going to have fun in any Covenant, even the ones that I've memed about. Because I was like, I want to go Venthyr at a push Ardenweald. You know, I wasn't even considering Maldraxxus or Bastion. But the time I spent in Bastion, I think I just love the characters in that zone. Maldraxxus, I think, is probably my favorite zone, having played through it. Which really surprised me. And I'm making my decisions on completely other things than what I like about the actual Covenants or their kind of aesthetic or anything like that, which is very surprising and very exciting and very like satisfactory to me. And I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of other people go through the same route as me, like people who aren't on the beta or the alpha now, who are thinking to themselves, this is the Covenant I want to be in. I've made this decision. This is the one that really speaks to me. And I will be really upset if I have to go a different Covenant for some ability or something like that. And I think you might soften on that when you play through? Because I certainly did. Did you have a similar experience or the opposite?
Yeah, I mean, more or less. I mean, when this was announced at BlizzCon and we were all, foaming at the mouth, screeching at each other about sexy vampires and stuff like that, I was in that camp. I was like, Venthyr. All my freaking characters are gonna be Venthyr. They're just so effing cool. But again, I've been really smitten by Maldraxxus. If anything has really kind of changed my mind, it's Maldraxxus. And on top of that, just from like a usability and like fun factor, they've got like my favorite paladin ability. Like, I like Vanquisher's Hammer. I like throwing a Thor hammer, and I like when I'm leveling in Ret that I get like auto divine storms off my Templar's Verdict. Like,
you are the first person I've heard be excited about that ability.
I like
paladin.
it. I like it a lot for leveling. It'd probably be boring in like when I start tanking. It's probably not the coolest thing in the world, but I mean, I spend so much time soloing these days. Like, it plays a factor for me, and I've always had a weird attraction to Divine Storm. Like, whatever the shit the trait I still haven't committed the name to memory is in BFA that gives you a free Divine Storm every once in a while. That's my favorite one. It's my favorite freaking one. I love having a tornado of holy smite power swirling around my paladin. I love it. So, and I don't know. I still remember a time where it's like my paladin had no ranged ability, and I know that has changed, but I don't care. I still get excited when they get extra ranged abilities.
And anyway, big brain players know that the Covenant abilities aren't actually all that game changing or powerful. Like, the real power lies in the Soulbinds. And even then, the real power in the Soulbinds lies in the conduits. And the conduits are the same whichever Covenant you're in 99% of the time. There's like a couple of conduits that will affect your base Covenant ability. But the real power in conduits lies in the output conduits, which are the same across the board. So, I mean, like, yeah, it's cool to have a Covenant ability that you really love and that you really get a lot out of. And there are definitely some that are better than others, I think. And there are some that are going to have better throughput in certain situations than others, 100%. But the real power in your endgame progression is going to lie in the conduits. Yeah. And I think most people appreciate that. And I like I say, like, top level player. And when I say top level players, I mean real top level players have like genuine and valid concerns about the Covenant system and would much rather, I think, a lot of the time just have them like swappable like talents or whatever. But honestly, I think for everyone else, like, it's a really exciting system. I'm not rubbishing anyone's concerns about it by any means, but look how much we talked about our choices here and how I'm super excited about making, because I haven't made that choice yet. At the moment, I'm like, well, I like Maldraxxus is my favorite zone and probably my favorite Covenant ability as well. But then Bastion has my favorite Soulbinds, and Ardenweald, I think, has the best story. And Venthyr is just cool, awesome vampire bitey boys, and who wouldn't love that? And so at the moment, I don't know what my choice is going to be, and I'm really excited. And I'm excited to make that choice with other characters as well and other alts and experience like a really different thing. I'm excited to have like alts who are the same class, but have like a really different gameplay experience because of the different Covenants that they've chosen. Like, there's a lot about the Covenant system which I find incredibly exciting. Like in a way that nothing really gripped me about BFA in that way. And like, for all of the bad that could come with it, I think the good that could come with it is really cool, and I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I'm with you as well. I think this conversation will most likely taper off as we just become more knowledgeable once the game launches. But
I mean, I have been playing it a lot, and I think the system of having the Covenant be the thing that you progress, as opposed to, say, your Heart of Azeroth or your artifact weapon, I think seems to be working pretty well at the moment too, in the testing that I've done on it. Like, it's sorry, it's my doorbell, but don't worry, I won't get it.
It sounds remarkably like a phone.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it literally is a phone because you have to pick it up and go hello, and then It's really cool. It works. It's good that there's loads of things to like level up in your Covenant, renown, and unlocking the different branches of the Soulbinds being like the really big one, but also like just opening up your teleportation network and your kind of anima focuser and getting further in Torghast to collect the things that you need for the legendaries and stuff like that. There's very clear goals unfolding when you get to endgame. Because we all know, obviously, an expansion lives like fun though the leveling is, and I always really look forward to that magical time.
Well, I mean, when you get to Endgame, Captain America picks up Thor's hammer, which is Vanquisher's hammer. You're already Captain America. Now you get to pick up Thor's hammer. So clearly, Vanquisher's hammer is the best thing. All other Paladin players who are not enthusiastic about it are just categorically wrong. It's okay.
Yeah. And it's like, and so yeah, like the end game is super important. And I mean, what did you have when BFA end game started? You had
grinding for the same piece of armor for the rest of eternity.
Yeah. You want like on a day to day in the first couple of weeks of end game for BFA, you were getting your rep with your different factions, so you could buy crafting recipes. Stuff like that. You were doing Mythic Plus. You were into the flow of it. Like Shadowlands has got a lot more than that going on. You've got Torghast, which you have to go into to get your stuff to make your legendaries. But you have to get like the recipe for the legendaries from dungeons and stuff as well. And you have to get like your base item for the legendaries. You have to get your kind of like secondary stat inputs for your legendaries as well, which are sold by profession people. So either you're buying it from profession people or you are a profession person, you're making it for yourself and you're working towards that. You've got conduits that you're collecting to put into your soul binds. You've got your covenant stuff to be leveling up to unlock those soul binds and all the rest of it in the covenant as well. Like there's in the short term at endgame, there's a lot more to be getting on with than BFA or Legion for that matter. And that excites me as well. Like there's you've got your kind of weekly event thing that your unique covenant kind of like gameplay experience, which if you're Venthyr is the party planner, which is horrible.
I understand you're really excited about throwing a fish party that no one respects but you, but
I hate it. I hate the Venthyr party planner. I can't think of anything worse than because it's the problem with the Venthyr party planner is it's too good. It's too good. It like someone worked so hard on that, and it's really good. And like it's a game. It's a proper game which you have to think about and work towards and like level up. And like you're going to get better as the months go on. You have more options, and you can spend ages thinking about this party you're going to put on, and then the party's happening and things are going wrong and you're fixing it, and who's coming to your party and how do they like their party to be, and you're making a party like that, and then you get stuff in your chest at the end, and I'm like, this is great. I don't want to do it every week. No way. I don't want to do this. I want to be out doing my dailies and stuff and my world quest. That's fun. This is fine. It's awesome. It's like so much better than it has any right to be. But I'd much rather do the Ardenweald one where I go in and water some plants and then F off. Do you know what I mean? Like Ardenweald.
I can't say I've ever thought to myself, boy, I really just wish I could water some plants. But yeah, like, I follow your line of thought.
Like in Maldraxxus, you get to make an abomination, and he eats people and stuff, and it's awesome.
But man, like every time we get on Maldraxxus, I feel like I was so wrong to think they were going to be boring in OneNote, and they're definitely OneNote, but they are not boring. in Bastion, it's a combat gauntlet, and it's really good, and it's fun, and it's fine. Venthyr is a party planner, and it's funny, and it's really good, and it's easily the best out of all of them in terms of like effort that's been put into, and in terms of like refinement, and it's very elegant. It's really good. It's a great game. I don't want to do it. All I'm now trying to recall from memory, I'm fairly certain there was a party planning quest chain in the Blood Elf starting area, but very different, very, very different.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. It doesn't freaking matter. So I feel like the other big thing we haven't talked about here that is unique to Shadowlands isn't us just going, oh, I am excited for dungeons and I am excited for raids, because of course we are. It's World of Warcraft. It's expansion. You're always excited for those things. But we haven't touched on Torghast, which I just want to at this moment. I just want to live there. I don't want to plan parties. I just want to be in Torghast.
Yes. It's true.
It's true. What I'm looking forward to the most.
Really?
Yeah.
Because
so much of what you've talked about here, what we've discussed, and really, if we want to like kind of, I think try our best to paint an arc over all of the WoW killers we've done. You tend to throw to me to talk about the olden days, and then we have a conversation about how things currently are. And I really think the trend with WoW has been kind of a Diabloification, for better or worse. Grinding, like BFA especially, grinding for the same piece of gear, but just a better version of that same piece of gear. That sure sounds very Diablo to me.
Yeah.
And so, and it's a thought that's hit me now. So if this seems half baked, it's because it is. I think part of the problem, I think you and I have both spent a lot of time talking about how there's just an issue in grinding for the same piece of gear in World of Warcraft, and I agree with that. I still stand by that. But I think part of the problem too is the repeatable content to gain this repeatable gear. Is it any fun? And to me, World Quests they've run their course. I'm not excited about World Quests anymore. I'm not excited about emissaries anymore. I've done them enough. But Torghast is very new, and it's repeatable content, right? To a certain extent, in terms of if you're trying to accomplish something. Or gain.
It's kind of like, in a way, it's only repeatable. It's like, because it's not completable, right?
Right. But there's a point where you're no longer gaining a currency, right? Like there's diminishing returns in terms of a reward, even if you can just keep doing it, which is good, because I think that's exactly what you and I asked for at an early point when we did our first Torghast episode. We were like, for the love of God, don't gate this, and just gate my rewards. Don't gate my experience.
I'm glad they saw the light on that one.
Oh, yeah. I'm super excited about that one too. But I haven't really, I haven't messed with it at all since the rollover to beta, because I haven't maxed out in beta. I'm not going to do that to myself. I've already interacted with alpha/beta so much more than I have since Wrath of the Lich King. So I don't really have a good feel for what that loop feels like, but I'm hoping I can get more done there than I guess I'm concerned I can.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't, I went hard on Torghast when it first hit the alpha. Wasn't much else to do, to be honest. And I loved it. I used to thoroughly enjoy just going through there and blasting stuff on different classes and getting all the new upgrades and blasting, becoming godlike and destroying everything in my path. And it was super fun, and doing it with friends as well. And honestly, since those first couple of weeks, I haven't touched it. Haven't touched it at all. And I sometimes forget that it's going to be a big part of the expansion. And then I remember and I go, oh, wow, I'm going to be doing loads of Torghast as well. That's really cool. It's not something I've thought about at all. So it's kind of going to be, I can't see myself doing any more Torghast while the beta's on. So it's going to be something that I'm going to step into, and it will, I forget that I'm excited about it, but I really am. It's like this whole other thing. It's not like Island Expeditions. It's its own kind of special feeling thing, which is really cool. It's great. I hope people get a lot out of it. I hope like a community develops around it for kind of pushing it and trying crazy stuff in it, and I hope that it's able to facilitate that in a way. I feel like even if it is only fun for the first month or so, it's going to be really fun for the first month or so, and I think that's okay. I think that's cool.
Well,
but I think it will be a lot more fun than that.
Yeah, it strikes me as something with a lot of knobs to turn, values to adjust, ways to breathe new life into it over the course of the expansion's lifetime. And
you talk about turning knobs and tuning and stuff, but honestly, the great thing about Torghast is doesn't have to be balanced at all. Like, if it's infinite and free entry, doesn't have to be balanced at all. You can go in there and you can get ate by a massive gorilla the first second you step in there with no chance of surviving. And that's going to be fun because you can just go back in and try again. If you've been saving up a currency to go in there and you need it for your weekly reward that you've got to grind for your legendaries, and you get ate by a giant gorilla the second you step in there, that sucks and that's not fun. But it's free to enter, and you go in there, you get ate by a giant gorilla. That's hilarious. That's brilliant. That doesn't need to be tuned. You go in there and you've got some stupid ability that lets you blow everything up by looking at it. That's super fun. And it doesn't matter that other classes can't do that because they'll get their rewards and stuff anyway. It doesn't matter. It's all free to enter and infinite to run, and who cares? And I feel like it's kind of very unintuitive in that sense. I kind of feel like the joy of Torghast comes from it being unbalanced. And I feel like so much joy comes in its unfairness, whether that be you got a really easy one or you just got an outrageously difficult one. That's why I wanted it to be infinite entry, so they could keep that. Because for me, that is like the joy of it. Going in there and like, you know, the first time you're in Torghast and you go into that stupid portal room, which just ports you to like random platforms. And it can take you 2 seconds to get through that room, or it can take you like 10 minutes because it's just porting you all over the place. And if you go in there with it, and you know it's random, because if you go in there with a group, you all get ported to different platforms by going through the same portal at the same time. And like, you can be there for 10 minutes waiting for one of your teammates to come and get onto the end platform with you. And that's hilarious and brilliant because it doesn't matter.
It's because there's a chance for that, right? You now know that there's the chance for this type of wacky variance.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I'm not saying I don't think either of us are saying that like that is just inherently a good thing, but it would be a lot harder, I think, for folks to enjoy that knowledge if it was a gated experience.
Yeah, they wouldn't enjoy it, and rightfully so as well. That's the thing. Like, something completely random happens. Like, you're doing a Mythic Plus and a big gorilla comes along randomly and eats you for the first time ever in that dungeon. You've never seen it before. You're like, hang on, what?
Wait a minute. I was just lucky enough to get this key for this dungeon at this level. Like there were a lot of die that were cast before we even got to this point. And now it's over. We've ruined it. I just got ate by a gorilla.
And that's fine, and that's good, and that's as it should be. There shouldn't be big surprises in Mythic Plus. That's not what it's about. But I like the idea of there being stupid surprises in Torghast, and I think that's fine. I think it's okay for you to be having a really good run in Torghast, and then you walk over like you're just walking on the floor, and then suddenly a hole appears in the floor and you die. I think that's absolutely fine. Put that in there. You're running along a corridor and you know what ads to expect in this corridor, but here's a big gorilla and you just got son. That's hilarious. And it's going to be hilarious because it's infinite and because it's free and because it doesn't matter. And you're going to get your rewards. Like, and I really want to see Blizz really push that. And I know there are people listening to this right now who are thinking, I can't think of anything worse than that. That's not what I want Torghast to be at all. And that's fine. It's okay to have an opinion, even though your opinion is absolutely wrong. Because, like, I want to be running down Torghast and I want to get set on fire randomly. And I want to explode. But then I want to realize that as I'm just getting angry about that, I want to realize that actually the fire didn't kill me. It only killed all the baddies around me. And I'm like, awesome. That's stupid. I love this.
We are. I don't think we've ever been more so firmly on the same page across an entire episode of WoW Killer. I am with you. I feel like they've achieved procedurally generated WoW content, which is something I didn't think was really possible. I think that's probably, I'm certain, it's, I don't know, 3 months from now. Let's look back on this. Maybe we're going to be like, oh shit, those were some rose-colored glasses. Who knows? But this is so, like, I'm still just impressed that it works, like, as advertised, more or less, like, because it's something I really didn't think that we could do, like, that WoW could achieve. And I don't know. I want to put so many asterisks because I can already hear like counterpoints. Like, well, procedurally generated isn't necessarily good in Diablo. It's like, well, whatever. But it's a thing. It's a tool. It's an option. And it's something I didn't think you could do in World of Warcraft, and they found a way to do it.
But then, like, Diablo works on a key system as well, right? So,
yes.
I mean, you are wasting stuff if you die. So that's something that Diablo doesn't have the freedom to do, is just F you up for no reason.
Yeah, well, Rift specifically, but even like like going through if you just play through Diablo 3, there's major portions that are procedurally generated.
Sure.
But whatever the case is, you can't tell. Excited for Torghast.
I agree with you. And I haven't even been in Torghast like for months. And I was only there for about 2 weeks. And I hear it's just got better and better since then as well, with like updates and like it being much smoother and things. And also it's just thematically really great for the expansion. And I like theme is a big deal in this expansion. After having an expansion which I feel like the theme and the general atmosphere and the general thrust and focus of the expansion is one of the things that BFA really lacked. having such a strong theme and seeing it so dedicated to in Shadowlands is really exciting to me. Like, it's what I'm getting a lot of hype from. Which brings us to something I wanted to ask you about, actually, because we didn't have a show last week, but there was the news of the new Covenant dungeon bonuses. What I really want to, because I haven't asked you about this even in private. What are if you have any opinions on that? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do. I don't know what they are off the top of my head without looking them up, and I haven't interfaced with them personally.
Do you have a gut reaction to them? The idea being that each dungeon, so there's 2 dungeons for each zone. Just like most modern WoW expansions. And when you are in a zone which matches your Covenant, when you're in a dungeon which matches your Covenant, there are various bonuses and perks that you can unlock for the entire group. Just by being in that Covenant in that dungeon. So the first one they found in Ardenweald was, which is definitely, and they're all going to go through changes. That's doubtless. So in Ardenweald, in Turner Scythe, which is one of the Ardenweald dungeons, you can unlock a little area which gives you an alternate route through the dungeon for a very short amount of time. Lets you skip some trash. There's also a little area you can unlock where all your party can chow down on mushrooms to give you a stat bonus for 10 minutes. Very controversially, there's a bit that gave you checkpoints after each boss, which is definitely something they're going to get rid of. But again, they want our feedback. We're giving our feedback. Lose that. It's terrible. And there's all of the buffs seem a bit powerful at the moment, but I always think on beta and alpha, what you're supposed to be judging is the framework rather than the numbers. You're not judging the system, you're judging the framework of a system, right?
And it's all and what is the ceiling, right? If we're talking, because if the concern is for Mythic Plus, does it just brings the floor up a bit if the bonuses are across the board powerful, right? So is it that big of a concern if you can just, I qualified for a higher key and now it's harder? The system, I think the system should naturally push back against that power.
Maybe, but I think it's less a power thing, and I think it's more a group composition thing. The idea that what you're doing is you're adding another layer of discrimination, potentially against people who are trying to find a group. So at the moment you've got you need to obviously be the role that we're looking for. You obviously should probably not be a trash class. Ideally, we want one that is acknowledged as being good at Mythic Plus. We want you to have a very good rated IO score. Obviously, item level is going to be a big thing. Yeah. And now adding another layer of discrimination onto that. It's we're doing Turner Scythe, so we definitely need someone who's in the Ardenweald Covenant.
Right. So,
and I think the worry from the pug community is that it's just going to make getting pugs harder.
So I kind of share this thought across WoW as a whole, but I think this is a good example, a good springboard for the conversation, which is I think World of Warcraft needs more regular tuning, and I don't understand the team's aversion to it. They feel like the Hearthstone team 3 years ago, where we'll give you maybe 2 balance changes a year, even though this thing is clearly a problem, or this class is clearly underperforming, or underrepresented, or whatever. Shaman in World of Warcraft during BFA is probably a good example of this. I've heard more cries from Shaman players than anything else about they're just not happy with the way that their class works. Why couldn't the WoW team do something about that?
Yeah.
I get very, very cranky with what I see are arbitrary planting of feet. And I see a lot of that with the lack of desire to regularly tweak values in World of Warcraft. And I don't understand why. This is an online game. You have patches. Why not just have more of them? Why not have more micro patches? And that's kind of my thought with really a lot of Shadowlands. There's a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of moving parts to the Covenant system. We talked through well, right now we're excited to just make a decision based on our own personal decisions, but at some point we're going to know what the min-max is and how much does that hurt the fantasy and the freedom of this system. And I think the same is true for the dungeon bonuses. Covenants seem really cool. How much freedom there is in your choice, I think remains to be truly known. And I'm worried that the min-max values and the truths of the correct covenant for the correct class, for the correct spec, for the correct dungeon will eventually be found out, and that will just be a known value that doesn't get adjusted or pushed back against to even it out and keep the fantasy of freedom of covenant choices.
Yeah. And I got to say, I'm okay with having a meta. I'm okay with, like, you know, you're going to have the only alternative to having a meta that people discover is having all things be equal, which is not what an MMO is supposed to be about. You know, it's not.
Yeah,
like,
I think that's
things that classes or you know, professions or anything or specs which are better at things than other people are. Or worse at things than other people are. And in that situation, you're always going to have a meta if people care enough to find it, which with WoW they do, because obviously it's an incredibly popular game played by some incredibly skillful people. So they're always going to find that meta. And I don't think that's bad. I don't think it's bad that if you absolutely genuinely want to have the absolute best Mythic Plus setup, like for doing the highest keys, like realistically, you know, this is the best setup, and that's what it is. And it's only the best by fractions of a margin, but it's the best. So that's the one that you're going to want if you're pushing the absolute highest keys and stuff. The fact is, Discipline Priest is recognized as being the worst healer for Mythic Plus across the board. But you can do a plus 26 as a Discipline Priest. Okay? Like, you wouldn't choose a Discipline Priest to push high keys because they're not the best at it, but they can do it. And that's a difference. Like, the problem is if classes can't do stuff, not that if other classes are better at it. So, like, the problem would be if a Discipline Priest couldn't do a 26, and the only way you could push high keys was to have the meta. But we've established that that's not the case. So it's okay not to have, like, you don't want everyone to be optimal. Like, and Priest has its own thing. It's really good in progression raiding because of all of its absorbs and things like that. So, like, it's got its own thing that it's better at, and that's okay. You know, it doesn't mean that you have to have a Discipline Priest to progression raid, but, like, if you were going to have the best possible composition that you could, then you would. And I think that's, like, part of the joy of MMOs. Now, people's worry with the Covenant bonuses and dungeons is slightly different from that. And, you know, it's that thing of, like, well, we're going to turn you down for this group because you're not in this covenant. And I'm sure there will be examples that are posted on Twitter and stuff where that does happen. Of course it will. Will it be a major problem? I don't think so. I don't think so in the slightest. Like, there are, like, it's overwhelming odds that you are going to have someone of the correct covenant in your dungeon group if you just chose everyone completely at random.
That's what I hope. Like, for me, my desire, I guess, is more for it to be an additional variance in my dungeon runs to, like, keep it fresh. Like, oh, I ran through with a Venthyr this time and the dungeon run was different in this way. Yeah, that would be cool and great.
And at the moment that doesn't happen because, like I say, I think the idea is brilliant. I really enjoy that. People are doing maths in the chat, but I can tell you it's a 23% chance that you won't have anyone of the right covenant for any one dungeon if you randomly choose everyone in your group. So there. I'll say the maths chat. It's 23% chance, which is, you know, like, and if there's only one person in the group, so, like, you'd only ever have to start kind of being picky about it for the last spot in the group if you didn't have someone in the group already, you know, who's part of that covenant. So it would only be something you had to think about if you got to the last spot in the group and you still didn't have anyone of that covenant.
I guess for me,
it will absolutely be used in Mythic Plus keys, and I think they should be as well. In the same way that everyone says they hope Covenant abilities aren't usable in raid or dungeons, I say to those people, fuck off, because it's really fun. And I want these things to be available in the most important play, because that's fun to me. Like, so at the moment, I think the rewards are too powerful, because at the moment, I think they will not achieve that thing that you're talking about, Garrett, of going, oh, cool, I've got a Venthyr in this group. We get to do this cool thing. And at the moment, the rewards are so powerful that you really would go out of your way to make sure you had someone of that Covenant.
There's also a concern where you, as the Venthyr, are like, oh, for the love of God, I'm sick of running this one dungeon that I have a bonus in because people want my bonus. Yeah. There's a concern on that end, too, which is like the opposite. So, you as the singular person pledged to this Covenant, how does that affect your diversity of dungeon runs once you start doing, pre-made group content?
Yeah.
So that's a concern as well. And that's where I'm just like, as long as you're just open to tuning it, it should alleviate those concerns. But I haven't really seen a developer team open to tuning at a speed I think a lot of these features may need. And I'm with you too. My goal, by the way, my hope is not for equal power level across the board. I'm with you on that. I like metas. I also like meta shifts. I want the meta to shift. I don't want it to become equal power across the board.
Of course, meta shifts are a bigger problem in Shadowlands because, of course, you suddenly shift the meta for a certain class to a different Covenant, and now people have got problems because now you are kind of like forcing people to swap Covenants.
It was a problem with Azure armor to an extent. It was a problem with legendary or artifact weapons to an extent as well. It's an MMO. It's a class-based MMO. It would have been a problem in vanilla because it was. It's like, oh, I leveled up the paladin and I wanted the tank. Oh, warriors are the only tank. Shit. like sorry. Like it's just. I mean, that is a risk reward with this type of game. Like,
yeah, I think it's fun. I think it's neat. I think it's a nice. I think it's a nice little, not just flavor, but just a cool little thing to do in game. I think it's super fun. I think the rewards are too powerful, and I think they should turn them down. I think they will. Mm-hmm. You always see stuff like this come in needing to be tuned down because they put these things in the game and they always tune them up in beta and alpha because they want to see extreme examples of it happening.
I'm a strong proponent of release things strong. Because it's nothing worse than a thing hits and you're like, oh, that's a thing. I didn't even notice that it existed because it was so. And this is a little bit different. I usually talk about this with like cards in Hearthstone or Heroes and Heroes of the Storm, but that's a place where like, I don't want to get lost in the weeds here. But I'd rather make a splash and work back from there than no one even noticed that the thing is in the game. Yeah.
Me too. I honestly, it's like another thing that I'm hyped about in Shadowlands. I think it's going to be super fun, and a lot of like competitive players are going, well, we now need to make sure we have one of each Covenant in the group. So I don't care. Yeah, okay, fine. Make sure you got one of each Covenant in your opponent group. Then why wouldn't you? You're going to make sure that you've got a tank and a healer in your group. Just make sure you got one of each Covenant as well. Who gives a shit? Like, come on, do it. Just make sure you got one of each Covenant. Who cares? Yeah, do that then. Fine. It's easy.
Yep. Well, I know we don't usually take an email, Taliesin, but I do have one that's like pretty in line with what we've been talking about today, which is general Shadowlands hype. So I would like to include it.
Sure.
As an endpoint. So if you want to write in and be a part of the show, you can do so. wowkillercast@gmail.com. That's also our Twitter @wowkillercast. But Charlie B writes in and says, hi guys, love the show. I'm a recent listener despite being a fan of Tally for a while. I simply didn't know you did a podcast. My question is, what do you expect to get prior to Shadowlands in terms of promotional media, if any at all? I think the best thing Blizzard have done outside of the game is the Daughter of the Sea cinematic, and honestly wish they'd done similar things for Sylvanas and Ajara. They did do one for both of them, didn't they?
Yeah, they weren't songs though, Garrett.
Oh, fair.
Why can't we have songs?
Okay. Well, the Sylvanas one was great. I should have kept.
How's the song been?
I should have kept. It would have been Evanescence. Whilst the Sylvanas one was great for the story and the Ajara one was fantastic for atmosphere, ultimately Jaina's was far beyond them and actually made me care about her story. even as a Horde. Thanks for reading, and I'm looking forward to the next episode. An Undead Shadow Priest. P.S. Legion Shadow Priest is my happy place. Naifu is Laifu.
Yes.
Yes.
I like Charlie B. Charlie B is my kind of Charlie.
We should know very, very soon what this is actually going to be. So I think this may be our actual last chance to predict what the hell we think the promotional media, the pre-promotional media for Shadowlands is going to be, especially at the regularity at which this podcast records.
Yeah. I mean, I'm moving house like today, so hopefully I'll be back in situ for next week, but it might be a bit more echoey. And it might be, if I haven't treated the new space and
we'll
stuff.
We'll just have you choke up on your microphone like an actual podcast. It'll be fine.
Yeah, I know.
We'll just get really close to it like this and start talking. Do your best NPR impression is what I'm asking for.
Hello, we are two white people and we are making a podcast. Please listen to our opinions. I don't know about you, Garrett.
You could have just said we're two people who are making a podcast. White male would have been inferred.
Yeah, it's true. I meant male, of course, but I am a straight white male on a podcast. So here is my very considered and serious opinion on Shadowlands. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'll do. That's what I'll do in the new space. But until then, okay. So Gamescom next week. Here's what I foresee. I foresee John Haidt on a stream, but enough about him. I think we'll get our first of what I will dub the Deathbringers, because I think it is certain that, we've been doing it since WoD, and it's always like super popular, particularly so in BFA. Like the Daughter of the Sea was very special. I can't see anyone in Activision Blizzard at a meeting turning around and going, let's scrap those Warbringer things. Like, I don't see them. They didn't do any good for us. I don't see the point in those Warbringer things. Let's get rid of them. There's no way that's happening. I feel certain that there will be a Warbringer equivalent at least. And, I can't see them kind of deciding to not carry on with the amazing, like, Sourfang style cinematic either, to be perfectly honest, although they might be a bit sparser. The Warbringers thing, though, definitely. And I would be amazed and appalled if they decided not to go with that. And I think we'll get our first one in the release date announcement, which will come at Gamescom. And I think they will be Hellier and Mograine and
got to be someone else. Bolvar. There's got to be a Bolvar, right? Or is
Sourfang. If they have like the Sourfang cinematics, that's going to be Bolvar.
That's a good point. Yeah, because they did go through all the trouble of giving him a cinematic model. They're going to get some mileage out of that.
The model is there, and the great thing about that is it means we'd get Talia in those cinematics as well. And how cool would that be?
Will we?
We would if that was the thing.
And that would be like a Thrall like mic drop moment. So it's going to be like the third cinematic in when you think you've seen all the sweet new models, and then like, hey, surprise.
Yeah.
Talia's been doing prison workouts and is square now.
Yeah. The alternative is that, yes, we get a focus on some of the big lore characters that we're going to see in Shadowlands in like the leveling zones. So Uther, Draka, who are the other ones? I don't want to give away the Ardenweald one because it is built up to quite nicely in the story. And a Blood Elf guy, merely a setback. Help me.
Kael'thas.
Thank you, God. Kael'thas, and if there were going to be three, that would actually fit very well.
Usually three, right? We had three Warbringers, we had three Harbingers for Legion.
Yeah, actually, that would fit Kael'thas and Uther and Draka, or Draka, I think it's how it's pronounced.
But there's
that would make sense.
4 covenants, so who are we leaving out?
We're leaving out the Ardenweald one, which is built up as a surprise in the plot, which is why I'm not giving it away. It's a really lovely plot.
So that it would actually work out, because if it's a surprise in the plot, then...
Yeah, exactly. So there we are. I mean, that would work out. I could see that. Yeah. But anyway, I think the series, whoever's are the star, like whoever's the star, I think the series will definitely happen.
I dig it.
Yeah.
Oh, it has to. It has to. I love those things. They're so freaking pretty.
I think we'll get our first one with the announcement, which will definitely come
so
at Gamescom.
You're shot calling for two separate shorts, one pre-rendered beautiful Bolvar chapter and one painterly animatic.
I think that'll come later. I think they wouldn't. So technically, the Shadowlands cinematic hasn't happened yet. So I don't think we'll get a Bolvar one till after that, until the events in game have happened with that.
Technically, yeah. Because remind me when Old Soldier released. That was because Old Soldier took place before the BFA cinematic, so it did make sense to drop that before.
Yeah,
what if it's a pre-Sylvanas arrival? What if it's like Bolvar and just roided out Lich King glory, before he gets beaten by Sylvanas, just sitting up there brooding with his helmet on, like, I know she comes. I don't think it will. I'm okay with that either way. It'd be cool if they showed up with two shorts. That'd be great. That'd be some serious mic droppage.
Yeah. I don't think they will. I think we'll get a
John Haidt would have come up with two microphones so he could drop them both.
Hi, I'm John Haidt.
We need to get an echo effect since there's two microphones.
I love him so much. I just hope he's involved. in the announcement, that's all.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, Charlie B, thank you for your email. And everybody, thank you for sending them in. We'll have a mailbag episode soon. Send them to wowkillercast@gmail.com. I think it's going to bring us to the end of our unabashed Shadowlands hype episode, Taliesin. Before we leave, if folks are somehow listening to this WoW podcast that Charlie B didn't even know existed, and they don't know where they can find your other wonderful WoW content, where can they do so?
Garrett, I'll talk about WoW Killer more on my own channels, which you can find
it was a compliment.
On YouTube, Taliesin and Evitel do games. I didn't say that right. My channel is called Taliesin and Evitel do games. And on Twitch, Taliesin and Evitel. And also on Twitter, Taliesin Evitel. But won't be any YouTube videos for a week or so because we're moving house. So, got plenty there, though. You can look through them all. Like, you can watch them all. It's fine. They're there. They're not going anywhere.
Yeah, I just, for the hell of it, was like, what happens when I Google T&E? Doesn't work. I don't get you.
Oh, T and E?
Yeah,
I wonder.
Doesn't work. By the way, everyone, a pitch title for this podcast was G&T.
Wait, what does T and E actually mean? Web expenses.
Yeah, I get something for like trademark. I get a local marble and tile store. And
that's ruined. I did not need to know any of that.
In Bradenton, Florida. It's something to do with finances. It's all very boring.
Okay. We're gonna have to game Google a bit better than that.
Yeah, you're gonna have to. But yeah, Taliesin and Evitel everywhere. I said it before. I'm a legitimate fan. I watch your content. It's great. Folks should go watch it if they somehow aren't.
I don't watch any of yours, but if I did want to, where would I find it?
You would find it at amove.tv, where Taliesin isn't listening to any of it. Going to do a new Angry Chicken today. That is the podcast for Hearthstone. Just got a massive patch yesterday because it is not World of Warcraft. They do make micro adjustments to their meta. So you should go tune into that wherever podcasts can be found. Just go to amove.tv. It's all there. You'll find all the shows that I do. And that's going to bring us to an end of this episode of WoW Killer. Until next time, good luck and have fun. It's our first episode since the existence of the Dick Hungry Chicken where we didn't mention the Dick Hungry Chicken.
I made this. You did mention dicks, though.
Well, you made a dick joke.
Actually, Garrett, you tried to slip your dicks through the net, but I got them. I picked up on your dicks.
I recoil from that phrase.
You couldn't slip your dicks past me. I noticed them.
That's because my dick is inspecting the subtlety.
Some of your dicks were a bit on the nose, if you don't mind me saying. Right, I can't chat. I've got to go and pack boxes. I've got to do a farewell to the office stream, which is going to take about 20 minutes because I feel like we need a T&E stream to say goodbye to the office. But then I have to pack I have to pack away this entire office tonight.
Wonderful.
So
wonderful. Well,
it's been a joy, and I don't see any reason why we won't be doing this next week, same time next week. Why not?
Wondrous.
Come.
Well, goodbye. Goodbye, stream. You've been wonderful. And we'll just tentatively plan on a mailbag next week unless, crazy big Shadowlands things happen.
In fairness, Garrett, we haven't had one in like 2 months.
It's because we also skipped an entire month of episodes. But yeah. Bye now, chat. You've been great. Love you guys.